The afternoon sun beat down on the quiet suburban cul-de-sac, its golden rays glinting off the polished hoods of luxury SUVs parked in front of nearly identical houses. Birds chirped lazily in the trees as Marcus Green knelt in his driveway, tightening the last bolt on his new garden gate. He'd just moved into the neighborhood 2 weeks ago, a peaceful, HOA-controlled community where lawns were symmetrical, mailboxes identical, and smiles often fake. Marcus had worked hard to earn this home, a reward for years of service as a firefighter and countless hours of overtime. To him, this house wasn't just brick and wood, it was proof that his perseverance had finally paid off. But as he looked up from his work, he noticed something that made his jaw tighten slightly, a woman in oversized sunglasses marching purposefully down the sidewalk toward him. Her stride was sharp, her posture rigid, and her expression screamed entitlement. Her name was Karen Whitfield, the self-appointed eyes and ears of the HOA. She was known for complaining about everything, from slightly crooked mailboxes to the wrong shade of flowers in someone's yard. Today, her eyes were locked on Marcus like a hawk that had found its prey. "Excuse me," she barked, stopping at the edge of his driveway. "You can't install a gate here without prior HOA approval. I'll have to report this." Marcus straightened up, wiping sweat from his brow. He kept his tone calm and polite, though irritation flickered behind his steady gaze. I already sent the paperwork. The HOA president signed off last week. You can check the records if you like." Karen's lips curled in disbelief. "That's impossible. I am the one who monitors those things." Marcus gave her a small, patient smile. "Then you must have missed it. I have a copy inside if you'd like to see it." Her face flushed, she wasn't used to being challenged. But before she could retort, she noticed the security keypad next to Marcus's front gate. Her eyes narrowed. "Why do you even need that? We don't do gates here. This is a friendly neighborhood. We don't need barriers." Marcus's jaw clenched, but he stayed composed. "It's just for privacy, nothing more." Karen huffed, muttering under her breath, "Privacy. Right." Then, spotting her chance to assert control, she decided to push further. When Marcus turned to go back inside, Karen spotted another opportunity, the HOA clubhouse behind his property. She claimed she had a right to inspect the shared facilities, and without asking, she tried to walk through his backyard gate to take a shortcut. Marcus stepped in front of her. That's private property," he said firmly. "You can reach the clubhouse from the main path." Her eyes widened in disbelief. "Are you refusing to let me through? I live here." "And so do I," Marcus replied evenly. Something inside her snapped. She took out her phone, hands shaking in performative outrage. "That's it. I'm calling the police. You can't just block residents from community access. I'll have you arrested for harassment and obstruction." Marcus stared at her, silent but composed, as she dramatically dialed 911, her voice trembling with fake fear. "Yes, hello? There's a man here, he's aggressive, he won't let me pass. I feel threatened." Marcus sighed and leaned against the fence, shaking his head slightly. He'd seen this play before. A faint smile tugged at his lips when he heard the familiar voice answering Karen's frantic call through the phone speaker. 911, what's your emergency? The dispatcher asked calmly. Karen blurted, "There's a large black man, he's blocking me, and I." But before she could finish, the dispatcher interrupted, her voice suddenly sharp and icy. Can you describe the man again?" Karen hesitated. "Yes. He's tall, muscular, wearing a gray shirt." The dispatcher's tone changed, calm but unmistakably pointed. That's my husband." Karen froze, color draining from her face. Marcus folded his arms, watching her realization sink in, the kind of silence that carried both power and irony. The neighborhood had just gotten a new lesson, and HOA Karen had finally met her match. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. The chirping of birds dulled, the wind paused, and even Karen's phone felt heavy in her trembling hand. She stared at the screen as if it had betrayed her. On the other end, the calm, steady voice of Angela Green, Marcus's wife, broke through the stunned silence. Angela said slowly, her voice smooth but carrying a quiet strength. "Are you still there?" Karen blinked, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Wait, did you say your husband? Yes, Angela replied firmly. Marcus Green. He's standing right in front of you, isn't he? Karen's throat tightened. The neighborhood's self-proclaimed enforcer had finally realized she just dialed 911 on the dispatcher's husband. Her hands began to shake as she fumbled to end the call. There must have been a misunderstanding, she stammered weakly. Don't hang up, Angela said quickly. You just accused a firefighter, a veteran of 20 years, of threatening you for standing in his own driveway. So, for the record, let's make sure everything is clear. Marcus watched quietly, arms crossed, his face unreadable. He didn't interrupt, didn't gloat. He'd been through situations like this before, the suspicious looks, the whispered assumptions, but this one hit differently. Not because of the insult, but because it was happening in front of his own home, the place meant to be his sanctuary. Karen's voice wavered. I didn't know, I just thought. You thought what? Angela pressed. That he didn't belong there. That he couldn't possibly be a homeowner in your neighborhood. Karen looked around, suddenly aware of curious eyes peeking through curtains. A few doors down, someone had even stepped onto their porch, pretending to check the mail just to watch the scene unfold. Look, I didn't mean any harm, Karen muttered, her tone softening into a performative apology. I was just trying to make sure the community is safe. Marcus finally spoke, his voice low but carrying a calm authority. Safe from what, From a man building a gate on his own property. Karen tried to laugh it off, but it came out forced. You have to understand, I've had issues before, people not following the HOA guidelines and people like me? Marcus asked quietly. Her lips parted, but no words came. The silence that followed felt heavier than her earlier shouting. Angela's voice came through the phone again, firm and clear. Mrs. Whitfield, I'm logging this call as a false report. You claimed my husband was aggressive when he did nothing but tell you to respect private property. You understand that's a serious misuse of emergency services, don't you? Karen swallowed hard. Please, I didn't know. I wasn't trying to. But Angela wasn't interested in excuses. You can explain that to the HOA board, she said sharply. And maybe next time, before you pick up the phone, you'll think twice about calling the police on someone just because of how they look. Marcus could hear the restrained emotion in his wife's voice. Angela had handled hundreds of calls like this, frantic voices laced with fear, often directed at innocent people who just looked suspicious. But this time, it was personal. Karen lowered her phone, shame creeping up her face. I'm sorry, she muttered weakly. Marcus gave a slow nod, though his expression stayed serious. You don't need to apologize to me. You just need to change how you see people. She looked down, unable to meet his gaze. I'll do that. As Karen turned and walked away, the weight of her humiliation followed her like a shadow. Neighbors who had been watching quickly disappeared behind curtains, whispering to one another. The story would travel fast, faster than any HOA newsletter could carry it. Marcus exhaled deeply, finally letting the tension slip from his shoulders. He glanced up at the security camera he'd installed the day before. The whole thing had been recorded not out of spite, but for protection. Experience had taught him that sometimes, people's perceptions were more dangerous than any criminal. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the rooftops and the neighborhood lights flickered on, Marcus sat on the porch sipping lemonade. Angela joined him, her headset finally off after a long day at the dispatch center. She smiled softly, though her eyes still carried traces of irritation. You okay? She asked, sitting beside him. He nodded. Yeah. I've seen worse. Just didn't expect it to happen here. Angela reached over, squeezing his hand. That's the thing about prejudice, she said. It doesn't care about zip codes. Marcus chuckled lightly, though his tone was tinged with truth. Guess we made quite an impression on the HOA today. Angela smiled, but her gaze turned serious. I'm going to report her call anyway. Not to get her in trouble, but because people need to learn there are consequences. Calling 911 because someone makes you uncomfortable isn't safety, it's abuse. Marcus nodded in agreement. You're right. And maybe next time, she'll think twice before playing neighborhood cop. They sat